Take a quick pause. Did you know that over 90% of you watching haven't hit the subscribe button yet? If you're enjoying this video, take a second to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps us bring you more gripping stories every day. Also, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments so we can see how far our stories are reaching. Your support really keeps us going. Now, let's jump back into the video. I have been married to Emily for over 10 years. I'm not sure when it happened, but somewhere along the way I stopped questioning whether or not I was happy. I think it's because I just assumed I would always be. There are moments, though, small moments, that make you pause, like when you look back on old photos and realize that the person you thought you knew, the person you've built your entire life around, may not be who you thought they were. But we've had a good life. A full one. Quiet. Peaceful. Comfortable even. We've had our disagreements, sure, but nothing that ever made me doubt the bond we shared. Not until recently, anyway. I guess that's how it always goes, right? You think you know everything, you think you've got it all figured out, and then one day, something happens. It doesn't have to be anything big, just a moment of change. And from that moment on, everything starts to look different. Today, I found something that's changed everything. It started innocently enough. A Saturday afternoon, just like any other. I decided to tackle the attic. It had been years since we'd organized it. There were boxes of old things up there, stuff we didn't need but couldn't bear to throw away. Over the years, Emily and I had added things to it, like little souvenirs of our life together. Old letters, photos from trips, a few things from when we were younger. It was all tucked away in the corners, collecting dust. I remember feeling almost nostalgic as I pulled down the first few boxes. It's strange, isn't it? The way the past seems so much easier to look back on when you're not living it. I found old books I'd read in college, a sweater that still had the smell of her perfume on it, and a photo album that had us grinning on some beach vacation we'd taken years ago. We were so young then. Carefree, I suppose. Not like we are now. I was nearly done with the main area when I saw something I didn't expect. A small wooden box tucked in the corner behind a stack of old vinyl records. I had never seen it before. I hadn't even known it was there. It wasn't like anything else in the attic. While most of the boxes were old and weathered, this one was clean. New, almost. It had a small brass lock on it, which immediately caught my attention. Emily and I had always been open with each other about everything. We didn't keep secrets. At least that's what I thought. I don't know why, but the first thought that crossed my mind wasn't, I should leave it alone, but rather, what's inside? It was just a box, after all. But the lock. Why would she keep something locked away from me? I knelt down to get a closer look. There were no signs that it had been disturbed. Dust wasn't settled on it the way it had settled on everything else in the attic. Someone had moved it recently, but who? And why? Emily was downstairs in the kitchen, making lunch. She didn't even know I was up here. I sat there for a moment, staring at the box. My hand hovered over the lock, hesitant. I shouldn't. But curiosity got the better of me. I didn't need a key, I could just break it open. The box wasn't heavy. I lifted it, feeling a strange energy radiating from it, and carried it over to the small desk I had set up in the corner of the attic. I had no idea what I expected to find. I thought maybe some old letters, or perhaps something sentimental. But when I lifted the lid, I froze. Inside there were photographs, dozens of them piled on top of each other in a disorganized mess. They weren't anything like the photos of us that I had expected. These were strange, out of place, and they seemed to be from different times and places. They weren't the kind of pictures you take when you're happy or relaxed. They were different. Each one was grainy, the edges curling with age, but still clear enough to make my stomach twist. The first photo showed Emily standing on a rocky shoreline at sunset. She looked beautiful, of course. She always did. But there was something off about her expression. She wasn't smiling. Her face was serious, almost fearful. And in the background, there was a figure standing just outside the frame. The figure wasn't clear, just a shadowy silhouette, but I could tell it was a man. I didn't recognize him. The weirdest part was that Emily seemed to be looking right at him, not at the camera. She seemed to be waiting for him, almost as if she knew he was coming. I shuffled through the pile of photos. There were more like it. Pictures of Emily in places I didn't recognize, standing with people I didn't know. Each photo had that same uneasy atmosphere to it, but it wasn't just the people in the photos that unsettled me. It was the way Emily looked in each one. Different, distant, like someone who wasn't entirely herself. I didn't know what I was looking at. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Something about these photos didn't add up. Emily had never mentioned traveling to any of these places. She'd never talked about these people. Why would she hide this from me? And more importantly, why would she leave it here in the attic, buried under old things? Then I found the next item buried beneath the photos, a small yellowed envelope. I opened it carefully as if I were handling something fragile, and inside was a piece of paper, folded and unfolded so many times that the creases were worn thin. There was a message written on it, scrawled in hurried, almost frantic handwriting. "They're looking for you. Don't come back. You can't trust anyone. Stay safe." I felt a chill run down my spine as I read those words. Who had written this? And what did they mean by "they're looking for you"? Was this some kind of warning? A threat? Was Emily involved in something dangerous? My mind raced, my heart pounded in my chest. I wanted to stop, to put the box back and pretend I'd never seen it, but it was too late. The curiosity had already consumed me. I kept digging through the box, feeling more and more like I was unearthing something I wasn't supposed to. I found more letters, most of them written in languages I didn't recognize. And then, at the very bottom, something that made my blood run cold. A small VHS tape. The label was barely legible, but I could just make out one word. Emily. I couldn't breathe. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in on me. What was this? What did this all mean? I had to know. I didn't know what I was about to uncover. But as I stood there staring at the box, I had a sinking feeling that I was standing at the edge of something much bigger than I could understand. Something that Emily had been hiding from me for years, but why? I wasn't sure I wanted to find out, but at the same time, I couldn't look away. I stood up, the box in my hands, my mind racing. I knew I couldn't just ignore this. The questions wouldn't stop, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had uncovered something that was meant to stay buried. Something that had been kept from me, hidden in the shadows for far too long. I had to know what it all meant. I had to find out. I didn't even notice when the afternoon slipped into evening. The fading sunlight filtered through the small attic window, casting long shadows across the dusty old boxes, making the room feel even more suffocating than before. My hands trembled as I held the VHS tape. I didn't know what to do with it. Didn't know if I should watch it, or if I should just put it back where I found it, pretending none of this ever happened. But the curiosity, it burned. It felt like a slow, gnawing itch in the back of my mind. I couldn't just leave it. I found an old VCR in a closet downstairs. It was something I hadn't used in years, but I plugged it in, half numb, still clutching the tape in my hands. My mind raced with questions, none of which seemed to have answers. What was Emily involved in? What was all this? I sat down in front of the TV, the dim glow of the VCR light flickering as I inserted the tape. My heart thudded in my chest. The screen remained black for a few moments, then slowly it flickered to life. The image was grainy, fuzzy at first, just static and white noise. But then the picture cleared and I saw her. Emily. It was strange. Her face, so familiar to me, but yet different. She was sitting in a dimly lit room, the kind of room that looked like it belonged to a hotel or an old building. There was no warmth in it, just shadows and silence. She wasn't alone. There was a man beside her, but his face was obscured by the low light. I couldn't tell who he was. My breath hitched. She didn't look scared or happy, just focused. Her face was serious, almost as if she knew she was being filmed. But there was something else in her eyes. Something distant. Something guarded. I leaned closer to the screen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. She wasn't speaking, but the man beside her was. His voice was low and garbled, almost inaudible, but I could make out some of the words. You know the rules. You can't come back. They won't stop until they find you. Emily didn't answer. She just sat there, her fingers gripping the edge of the table in front of her, her gaze fixed on the man. He leaned forward slightly, his face almost visible in the dim light, but then he pulled back into the shadows as if he knew the camera was there, as if he knew I was watching. "If you stay, they'll find you. You know what they'll do." I felt a shiver creep down my spine. This wasn't just a conversation. This wasn't just a casual meeting between two people. There was an urgency to it, a weight I could feel even through the screen. Emily didn't seem afraid, but there was a tension in her shoulders, in the way she held herself. She wasn't just sitting there, she was waiting. I couldn't stop watching. My heart pounded as I searched for some clue, something that would make sense of all this. But nothing about this made sense. There was no explanation for why Emily was sitting there, in that dim room with a man I didn't recognize, talking about them and rules and not coming back. The tape flickered again, and for a split second I thought it was over. But then it cut to a new scene. This time, Emily was outside, standing alone on a street corner, the night air seeming to swallow her whole. She was dressed differently, more casually, like she was trying to blend in. The man wasn't with her, but there was something about the way she moved, the way she looked around, that made me feel like she was being watched. I leaned forward, my eyes straining to catch every detail. She pulled something out of her pocket, an envelope, I think, and glanced around nervously before slipping it into a mailbox. I couldn't tell what was inside. I couldn't tell what it meant. But there was something about that moment, her hurried movements, the look on her face, that made my gut twist. I paused the tape, staring at the screen. Emily's face froze, her expression unreadable. I didn't know what I was looking at anymore. It felt like I had crossed some line, like I had opened a door that I could never close again. What was she involved in? Why was she keeping this from me? Why hadn't she told me any of this? I rewound the tape, hoping to catch something I missed, some clue that would explain it all. But the more I watched, the more I realized I was in over my head. I wasn't just watching a tape. I was seeing a side of Emily I didn't know existed, a side of her that had been kept hidden from me for all these years. I couldn't tell her about this. Not yet. I didn't even know how to process it all. I had questions, but every answer seemed to lead to more questions. Who was she? What had she been doing? I couldn't stop the feeling that I was losing her, or maybe that I had never truly known her at all. The woman I thought I married, the one who hummed in the kitchen while she made dinner, the one who laughed at my dumb jokes and held my hand when we walked down the street, wasn't the woman I saw on that tape. My head spun with all the things I didn't understand. I didn't know where to go from here, what to do with this information. But one thing was clear. Whatever I thought our life was, whatever I thought our marriage was, it wasn't the truth. And now I had to figure out how deep the lies ran. I couldn't go back to normal. Not after what I'd seen. I didn't know if I even wanted to anymore. There was a part of me that just wanted to confront her, to ask her about the tape, about the messages, about everything. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, feared what I might find if I did. What if there was more? What if this was just the beginning of something much darker? Something I wasn't prepared to face? The night dragged on, and I found myself unable to tear my eyes away from the screen. The same questions looped in my head, over and over again. I should have gone to her. I should have asked her about it, but I couldn't. Not yet. What if she didn't want me to know? What if this was all something she had been trying to protect me from? Or maybe there was no protecting me from it at all. Maybe she had just been waiting for the right moment to tell me the truth. Or maybe she had never planned on telling me anything at all. I was too far in now. I couldn't turn back. The tape clicked off, and I sat there in the dark room, the weight of what I had seen pressing down on me. I had just scratched the surface, and already I could feel the ground shifting beneath me. I didn't know where to go from here, but I knew one thing. I had to keep digging. I had to understand what Emily had been hiding. I had to know who she really was. I sat in the darkness for what felt like hours, the cold silence pressing in on me. My mind was running, but it was like I was watching myself from a distance, unable to process what I had just seen, yet unable to stop thinking about it. Emily's face, Her gaze locked on that shadowy figure, the cryptic words from the man whose identity I still couldn't make out. It all felt like a dream, a nightmare, something that didn't fit with the life I thought I knew. It was like I had been living in a world made of glass, and now the cracks were showing. I stood up, my legs unsteady, and walked over to the small desk where I'd been sitting. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't relax. I paced the room, my thoughts churning with 1,000 possibilities. Was this all just some misunderstanding? Was I reading too much into it? Maybe Emily had been involved in some sort of, I don't know, old work or a past life that didn't concern me. But I knew that was a lie. No, this was something far deeper than anything I could have imagined. I went back to the box, the one I had found in the attic, the one that had started this whole unraveling process. I pulled out the photos again, spreading them across the desk like pieces of some puzzle I had to solve. There were more images of Emily in places I didn't recognize, but it wasn't just the places or the people that bothered me. It was the way she looked, always so different, so out of place. In one photo, she was sitting at a table, a glass of wine in front of her, staring into the distance. Her face was blank, detached. It didn't make sense. This wasn't the Emily I knew. I flipped through more of them. In one, she was walking along a narrow street, looking over her shoulder, her expression anxious, like someone was following her. The man from the video was there again, lurking in the background, but this time his face was clearer. He was older than I had imagined, his hair salt and pepper, his face hard with lines that suggested years of worry or maybe something more sinister. Why had she never told me about him? Who was he? And why was he following her? I couldn't stop myself. I had to know more. I had to understand what was happening, what this all meant. I had to find her. I didn't wait until morning. By the time the sun was barely starting to rise, I was already downstairs, rifling through the cabinets and drawers in search of something I didn't even know I needed. The tape, the photos, the letter, all of it felt like pieces of a riddle I was too late to solve. The longer I thought about it, the more I realized how little I really knew about the woman I had shared my life with. I found her journal, tucked in the back of her dresser drawer underneath some old clothes. I had never read it before. She had always kept a journal, but she'd never been secretive about it. She always said it was just her way of processing her thoughts, her own little world. But now, holding it in my hands, I couldn't help but wonder if that journal had been hiding truth I never wanted to see. I sat on the edge of the bed, flipping it open to the first page. Her handwriting was smooth and familiar, the kind of neat, controlled writing I had always admired. But as I read, that familiar comfort quickly turned into something unsettling. The entries weren't like the ones she used to share with me. They weren't about us or our life together. They weren't even about mundane things like daily happenings or small thoughts. They were about escape. I can't stay here any longer. I can't keep pretending like everything is fine. They're still looking for me. I can feel their eyes on me even when I'm at home. Even when I'm with him. I don't know how much longer I can keep running. I read those words over and over again, trying to make sense of them. The date on the entry was from a year ago, right around the time we went on that trip to the mountains. The trip that, when I thought back, felt oddly out of place in our normal routine. We'd been planning it for months, but once we were there, it felt almost like we were strangers. She'd been distant, distracted, the kind of distant you get when you're holding something back. And here in her journal, she was talking about running. She was talking about people looking for her, but who? What had she gotten herself involved in? I kept reading, unable to stop, even as the words became darker. The entries were increasingly frantic, speaking of surveillance, of people she couldn't trust, of strange phone calls that made her jump. She wrote about being followed, about moving to a new town, about people who wouldn't let her go. In one entry, she even mentioned a safe house. What was she running from? I can't talk to him about it. He won't understand. I don't want to drag him into this, but I don't know how much longer I can keep it together. If I stay here too long, they'll find me, and I can't let that happen. Not again. Not again. What was she talking about? I slammed the journal shut, my mind reeling. I felt like I was spiraling, losing my grip on reality. All these years, 10 years of marriage, had been built on a lie, a carefully constructed facade, and I had been blind to it. I thought I knew her. I thought I could trust her. But what if I didn't know anything at all? I had to confront her. The questions in my mind were eating away at me, and I couldn't wait anymore. I needed to know why she had kept this hidden, why she had let me live in the dark. I waited until she got home from work. I had planned it out in my mind a dozen times, the way I would ask her, the way I would approach the subject. But when she walked through the door, I felt a sudden wave of doubt wash over me. What if I was wrong? What if I had misunderstood everything? But no, I couldn't unsee what I had seen. I couldn't unknow the truth. She had been hiding something, and I was about to find out what it was. I sat her down at the kitchen table, my heart hammering in my chest. She looked at me with that same calm expression, the one she always wore. But there was something in her eyes now, a flicker of fear, maybe, or guilt. I couldn't tell. "Emily," I started, my voice shaky, "we need to talk." Her face remained neutral, but her hands, resting on the table, clenched slightly. I could see her taking a slow, deliberate breath. "I found something," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Something in the attic." She didn't say anything at first, but I could see the tension in her face. The way her eyes darted away for just a second, like she was trying to find a way out of the conversation. "What did you find?" she asked, her voice almost too calm. I didn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to ask the question without sounding insane, but I had to. I had to know the truth. "Your journal," I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. "The tape, the photographs. Who are those people, Emily? What are you hiding from me?" Her breath hitched. For a moment, she didn't say anything, and I thought maybe she would lie. Maybe she would deny it all, tell me I was just imagining things. But instead, she stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor, and walked to the window, her back to me. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she said softly, almost as if to herself. I just, I couldn't bring you into this. Not then. Not now." I didn't know what she meant, but I knew I was about to hear something that would change everything. Something that might destroy the image of her I had spent 10 years building. But as I sat there waiting for her to explain, I realized that maybe there were some things that could never be explained. Some truths too dark to bear. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't ready to hear them. But I couldn't go back now. We were already beyond that point. And the more I thought about it, the more I knew. I wasn't the man who had walked into that attic anymore. I had seen too much. And now I was trapped in a story that wasn't mine, one that I didn't even fully understand. And the worst part? I didn't know if I ever would.